Welcome to Shapers of the Snow, a show dedicated to the small independent builders handcrafting skis and snowboards around the world. We sit down with the shapers to hear how they got started, the art behind their craft, the real challenges they face, and what continues to fuel their passion for creating shapes for the snow. Grab a beer or a coffee, and let's get on with the show. All right, today we have Mikey from
Franco.
If you want, just tell us how you got into skiing, snowboarding, and what brought you into snow sports.
Sure. I grew up skateboarder. I started skateboarding probably when I was 8 years old. Central Pennsylvania, had typical East Coast winters back then. Read about snowboarding, and I think it was Thrasher magazine, and saw an ad about a Burton snowboard, and thought, how cool would that be? We thought it as skateboarding in the winter, basically. And it was 1984. I bought my first Burton Performer, Woody, and nobody in Pennsylvania allowed it at that time, so we would have to go to the local sled riding hill and walk up and snowboard down. Try and do all the fun things we did on our skateboards on these wooden snowboards. I hadn't skied. I didn't have any ski background or anything like that. I don't know. I just thought that this was it. This was the coolest thing. And then 2 years later, met a person at this mountain called Tussey, which is right in the heart of Penn State University. And this lady ran the ski school, and she found out I knew how to snowboard and asked me if I wanted to teach snowboarding, and I would get a free pass. And free pass. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll definitely do that. And so the following winter, I was hemming and hawing whether I wanted to. It was 40 minutes away, and this local mountain, Blue Knob, allowed snowboard or didn't allow snowboarding, but was going to let me work for free lift tickets. But I had to put a pair of skis on to do it. And so I said, you know what, this place is closer. I'm going to do that first. And so I got a job checking lift tickets. I learned how to, wedge turn, barely make it down the hill. And then after I would get done working, I would put my skis away and I'd go get my snowboard because that's all I really cared about. And I kept getting caught by the management. And finally, the third time I got caught, it was the owner of the ski area, and he fired me because it didn't allow snowboarding. And so, yeah, I got fired for snowboarding, and it was probably 1986 or so. Then I said, okay, I guess my decision's made. I went to Tussey Mountain and started teaching snowboarding, and that led into a friend who taught came to Jackson Hole for spring break. I said, you got to come here. So the following year, I was at Penn State. I came out here for spring break. Guy found out I knew how to teach snowboarding at the snowboard school, said, you come back next winter, you're hired. And that was 1990, and I'm still here.
Nice. So you've been in Jacksonville for quite a while now.
37 years.
What got you into wanting to make your own boards? What was the inspiration behind that?
So I took snowboard teaching as far as I could. I got on the American Association of Snowboard Instructors national team. I was on that team for back-to-back sessions from 2000 to 2008. I became a backcountry guide in 2000. Had a sponsorship with Burton. I was snowboarding 7 days a week, and it just started taking a toll on me. And I had destroyed my back when I was in early 20s, blew out a disc, but managed it just fine. And by the time I was 40, the wheels had come off. I was in Japan with Burton doing a thing for the Burton Learn to Ride program, plane to do my work, and I couldn't walk. And so president of Burton Japan said, hey, I know you can't snowboard, but I'm going to cheer you up. I'm going to take you to meet this guy, Taro Tamai, of Gentem Snowboards. And on my way there to Taro's old shop, I just froze. I saw these beautiful snowboards as I was walking up the stairs to go inside, and thought, oh my God, those things are they're cool. They're just like nothing I've ever seen before. They're so powder focused and artwork, hand painted, like just amazing. I came back from that trip, went straight to the hospital, had surgery, had to take the rest of the winter off. And some guys who own Igneous ski and snowboards, who I went to high school with, said, "Hey, why don't you come in and build a board while you can't snowboard this winter, just so you don't go crazy?" So I built a board, and I thought that was just super cool. I had enough knowledge of snowboard construction from working with Burton, because I worked with all the guys to help refine and develop the learn to ride snowboards that made snowboarding easier for beginners. We had a lot of conversations about engineering and board design. When they said, "Yeah, come on and make a board," I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I had spent my career studying how people stand on these things and how people manipulate them. And I had an idea of what I wanted. So I built a board. One of our friends came, took it to Colorado, never came back. So I never got to ride that first board. So I made another one, and then the following year I was snowboarding, and I had people that I guide and teach said, "Hey, make me one." And I was like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah, that looks really cool." And so I went back and talked to the Igneous guy. I said, "Hey, I have some people who want me to make them a board." And I was so green at it. They were like, "Yep, but you can't put Igneous, so you can't put our name on it." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I get that." And I had customers say, "Yeah, I want one." And so I built one, and then I built another, and then I built another. But I wasn't really satisfied, because I still had seen in my mind what those Gentems look like. And back then, the Gentems, they're still great boards, and there's still some that are lacquered, but they're not all, right? It was the lacquered ones, the ones that had hand paint on them, that were just stunning. I said, "That's what I want to chase, that ideal, but I want to make it more of an American style snowboard." I hemmed and hawed with the guys at Igneous, who, I'm still best friends with those guys today, but I realized that what they were doing and what I wanted to do were different. So rather than kind of stepping on each other's toes, or me stepping on their toes, to be honest, I was like, "Okay, I'm going to just go and do it on my own. That way there's no animosity. I can go down the road I want to go down. I can build them the way I to build them." And the customer base that I had from guiding and whatnot, I had a bit of a captive audience, and I was listening to what they're asking, and decided to start out on my own. So I started at Igneous in 2010. That was the first board I made. And then by 2013, I had started Franco Snowshapes. And by 2016, I had left that factory and went to another factory by a guy named Kelvin Wu, who had Maiden Skis, which is a really tiny ski maker in Jackson. And that's where I learned CNC design, CAD design, because at Igneous, we did everything by hand, everything, and they still do. I mean, Mike has a CAD program, but it doesn't leave his computer. He prints and lays them down and cuts everything by hand, shapes everything by hand, which is still spectacular. I'm glad I don't have to do it that way anymore, but that's how I learned. I learned how to make a snowboard without a CNC, without very many tools, and that was really fun. But now I really like the way we do things. We get to do crazy stuff that no one seems to want to do, and here we are in 2020, right at the beginning of COVID. I lost that space because of COVID, right? The Kelvin said, "Hey, I need the space. This is my spot. You can work Tuesdays and Thursdays." And I was like, "Well, man, I can't build snowboards 2 days a week." So one of my clients that I've guided said, "Hey, are you guys okay? What do you need?" And I said, "Well, I need a building. I need a spot." And he said, "Well, let's do a project. But you find the land, you find all the tenants, blah, 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 and I'll help you build a building." And that's where we are today. I'm in a little corner of this building that we built, and luckily I'm part owner now, and so I'm not going to get kicked out to worry about the problems of rent in Jackson Hole. We moved it over to Victor, Idaho, which was drastically cheaper. And now, yeah, so here we are, 2026, and cruising.
Something to do into a business. That's pretty good.
Snowboarding since I was 14, and skateboarding since I was, 8 or 10. That's all I know. And so
Yeah.
that's all I wanted to do.
And you said you built a board, then your friend took it. Did you ever get a chance to ride that board, or no?
No, no,
Huh.
no. One of our best friends lived in Summit County, and he liked it, and so he took it with him. And I haven't seen it since.
Wow.
But I built the same exact board again, and actually, honestly, this the second time was probably better. And so I have that board hanging here at the factory,
And how that second board ride?
like a plank, like a table.
Like a table? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing that was I wanted to do differently at Igneous. A big thing was maple cores, maple sidewalls, cherry maple top sheets. Like these, they're beautiful, but they are beasts, man. They are burly. And the time that I was doing the opposite with when I was with Burton Learn to Ride, like we were trying to make boards really steerable and maneuverable and fun and playful. And so I kind of fell in love with that style of snowboarding versus the very classic Jackson Hole,
Yeah.
just charge. I just fell in love with the surfy side, like the playful side and whatnot. And so, yeah, so that board, I will ride it once in a while, but man, it's so stiff.
Definitely tell from your boards now that you are, you see that Japanese influence in your boards today. You get
Yeah,
definitely have that
very
kind of
much.
surf style vibe with your boards.
Yeah, thank you. No, I do. And sometimes I'm like, okay, let's try something different. And then the customer's like, oh, I want one of those, Japanese Obi top sheet boards. So I'm like, okay, we'll do it because I think I love them too. They're everyone is unique. And like, the cool thing about the Obi top sheets is, I go and buy them in Tokyo. There's too many of them, like they're getting thrown away. And so when I walk into these kimono stores and show them what I want to do and what I'm looking for, they get really excited because a lot of them are just getting they're in closets or they're getting thrown away because ladies buy them for a special event and then they don't wear them again. And so they're just collecting dust. So this is a cool way to repurpose them.
I was actually going to ask about that. They're silk, correct?
They are silk and metallic thread.
It's kind of like a delicate material. How do you protect the top of those?
Well, so it is delicate, but they're pretty tough actually. And sometimes we've got to back off our cores because the silk is a structural material, right? It's a strand of silk is stronger than that same strand of steel. A lot of times we have to kind of balance, the our composite layup and our core profiling so that the board also is not too stiff. But one of the things that we do is what we learn to do because the obies are all worn by people before, right? So we don't know what's on them. We don't know if they spilled oil or perfume or something on this material. And so when you're building this custom snowboard, if you don't check what's inside that top sheet and you just go and press it all together, you may have oils in there that the epoxy says, hell no, we won't go, and you might have a problem. So we take the obies and we have a flat press, and we will wet out the obies with a clear epoxy, a room temperature epoxy, instead of our heat cured epoxy. And that does a couple of things. It's less off gassing, lower temperature reaction, clarity, helps preserve the color clarity. But ultimately, what it's doing is it's showing us if there's going to be a bad reaction to something inside this vintage material that we can't see, then the obi's destroyed, not the snowboard, right? So then we set the obi aside. It came out great, no contaminants whatsoever. Flip it over, sand it, and then we marry it to the snowboard. It adds time, right? But we don't care. Like our job is not to be fast and produce as many snowboards as possible. That's not what we're about. So if I have to press a board twice, or sometimes we actually press boards 3 times for our wildflower boards, that's what we have to do to get it to be perfect. That's what we do. And we're not looking for necessarily ways to make them faster. We're looking for ways to make them as perfect as possible.
Yeah, understandable. And you can definitely see that in your boards. They definitely have a very specific look to them. They look like almost gallery pieces.
That's a double-edged sword, but that's what I want. Again, Japanese influence. You go to a place in Tokyo and have sushi, and you look at the chef's sushi knives, and they're immaculate, but they're tools at the same time. They look beautiful, but man, that thing will cut fish, and like they're actually tools. And so we do have that sometimes where someone says, "Oh, it's too pretty to ride," or it's it looks very delicate. Well, we build these things as strong or stronger than anything out there, and that's the goal. Because I want people to snowboard on this for the rest of their lives and then hang it on a wall. I don't want someone to snowboard it for a year and have it break down or have core shots, blah blah blah. These things are strong as all get out. I mean, we've got guys that have 600 days on our board.
Oh wow.
Jackson 600 days.
Yeah, that's not easy
That's
riding right there.
10 years of snowboarding. At the end of the day, you're like, well, how many snowboards would you have bought to get 600 days from one? And so that's ultimately our goal, is to make them as beautiful and perfect and bomber as possible, all the above.
That's good philosophy right there. Durable,
Well,
functional art.
making snowboards is dirty, right? It's dirty, no matter
Mm-hmm.
how you look at it. There isn't a good true bio resin. I use Entropy like Burton and all these other guys, but it's still epoxy, right? At the end of the day, you're still using plastic, you're still using steel, you're still using, there's waste. There's just no way around it right now that it's not a dirty job, right? It's getting cleaner and cleaner. And so for me, my thought is the way to make this cleaner is to not ever have it go in garbage.
Yeah.
Ever, right? It's ridden, and then art. And that way it never sees the dumpster.
There's no green way to do it. You can use green elements, but there's no actual green process to make a ski or snowboard. So be able to have something that lasts a long time, then you can hang
Right.
up on the wall after. It's a good middle ground with that. For construction, you make them long lasting. Are you using triaxle, biaxle, carbon, or is it give and take for what the customer wants for performance of the board?
Yeah, I mean we're very typically triaxial. But it really does depend on who the customer is. We have an extensive interview process to, when we're building a board for us, and that's why I really hate the word custom, because if you go online and you try and get custom anything, and even custom skis or snowboards, what you end up finding a lot of times is, here are your 5 shapes. Which top sheet do you want? Which base material color do you want? And so it kind of, I don't know, it cheapens the word custom. So for me, I just say tailored, because for us, the board doesn't exist yet. I'll show customers 100 boards, like, hey, let's get you started, right? So I don't want people walking into like a car dealership and there not be any cars, and then have the customer go, I don't know, I'm confused. So I will give them, examples of what we've built, and then we go from there, and then we'll build that board literally to within, a centimeter of their boot overhang, the flex profile according to their skill, their weight, their psychology. Like, I want to know what scares the shit out of you. I want to know what fires you up. What's the worst snowboard you've ever ridden? What's your favorite snowboard? What's the best place you love to ride? Ultimately, what are you trying to feel? What do you want out of this, out of the sport? So that customer, the goal for us is when they get on the board, within 2 or 3 turns, they say, that's what I thought it was going to ride like, versus buying a wonderfully made snowboard from all these other brands, incredible boards, don't get me wrong, but you don't know what's inside that engineer's head. And what I know is inside that engineer's head is they've got to create for the greatest common denominator, right? Because they're making a line, and that line has to sell through. And so they want to get to the most amount of people to sell that board. I don't give a shit about anyone other than the person I'm on the phone with. If I make a board for this person and you ride it and you go, God, that thing sucked, I don't give a shit. I don't care what you think. If that guy says it's the best board I've ever ridden, then that's job done, right? I don't care if anyone else likes it, because that's what tailored is, right?
Yeah.
It's like you trying to wear my suit. It's not going to work. I don't know what your build is, but chances are we have something that's slightly off. You can't wear my suit. You might put something I have on and go, God, this doesn't fit. Well, yeah, it's not made for you, right? It's made for that person. And that's 100% our focus, is that the person we're making it for goes, oh my God, this is exactly what I was missing. And that comes down to a 5-page questionnaire. If I can't snowboard with you, Or if you're coming to Jackson or live in Jackson, then I work with Jackson Mountain Resort in my backcountry guide capacity, and I fold in a full day of movement analysis and guiding, starting with an early tram. And I just spend the day riding and analyzing and saying, hey, this is what I see today. This is what I think we should make. Because if you don't know what's in somebody's head, you're really just guessing, right? So I want to know what from your head down to your feet. I want to know here first, and then I watch your ability second.
So you're getting out there with the customers and watching them ride to get
Mm-hmm.
an idea of how they ride.
Yeah, when it's possible, yeah, every chance I can get, I will do that. I mean, I'm working with a guy right now that's in Dubai, and he sent me video of him riding in Europe, and like that's really important to me. I need to see your energy level, your skill level, because some people like to go 100 miles an hour, some people like to turn. That determines a tremendous amount of stuff. Side cut in particular, right? If you're a straight liner, you don't need a 7.5 side cut. You don't need a 7.2 side cut. It's going to be too squirrely for you, But if you're a guy that's like, I live in the trees, you don't want a 9.5 side cut. You don't want a 10 side cut because the board's going to go too straight, right? So there's so many different characteristics that you can add. And are you riding a place like Jackson? Are you making a couple of boards for folks in Vermont right now? I know I've spent a ton of time there. I know exactly what they're going to be riding in. So I want to make the board fit to where they're going to use this thing the most.
Tailored is a good word for that.
Yeah, that's the intent. I was lucky because, I didn't come from money and I didn't come from that kind of world. And when I had made this for some customers, I had one in particular say, hey, man, if you're going to do this, this is what I think you should do. He was really encouraging to going down this road of custom. Had I gone down the road where I'm trying to sell 5,000 snowboards, 10,000, 20, 30,000 snowboards, I wouldn't be sitting in this room right now because that's a different business. Okay. It's totally fine, but that's a different business. And why would I chase great companies like Never Summer and LibTech and Burton and Capita and all these guys? Why am I going to chase them when I could do something that they're not? And I don't think they want to do what I'm doing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think they really care. And I'm like, you know what? This is a great chance to be artistic, but also utilize my passion for snowboarding and riding powder and create some things that the world hasn't seen.
No, it's a good take. So are you making custom molds for each of these boards you're making, or do you have, what's the process there?
We have
Because
we have modular molds. So in fact, on that note, we're making our first rocker camber combo. I haven't done that yet. I've got a customer who's 88. He probably snowboards 30 days a year, rides the Jackson Tram top to bottom, literally without taking breaks. He's an animal, but he's 88, right? And he knows it. And he's a huge high society Never Summer fan, but he wanted us to make him something really special. But he said, hey, I need you to make with rocker camber because it's just easier for me. I'm not going to get hung up. So to answer your question, yes, I mean, we're making them a special mold. What we do, because we do so much is tailored, well, everything is tailored. We do modular molds instead of entire molds, right? Because like this board for Frank with this rocker camber, I don't know that I haven't used it in 15 years. I don't know if I'll use it for another 15. So instead of making this gigantic mold for a single board, and then I have to have a storage unit for, crazy heavy MDF, we'll do it in modular sections. And that way I can pull and, replace parts for different boards. And it's a much easier and efficient way to do it instead of just wasting money and time on building solid MDF molds.
yeah, they take up a lot of space after a couple.
Oh my God, they're so heavy, man. They're
Yep.
just ridiculously heavy. Even the modular molds are heavy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we'll make tip, tail, camber molds for each design if we have to, and some of them this is a great, we have all our tip and tail molds labeled and for what kind of pitch they give us for tip and tail height and early rise and whatnot. So, mold number 2 works for the nose, and we'll use mold 3 for the tail, or mold 7 or camber 2. So each one is numbered. And then we can, when I'm designing on the computer, then I'll go through and see exactly which one will work best to
Kind of
fit
mix and
with
match
what we may be
everything.
doing.
Interesting. Well, that's a good approach. Say for like that 88-year-old guy, I'm guessing probably a softer core material. Do you guys use a standard core material, or do you, again, tailor that to the rider as well?
Yeah, so we typically will start with a poplar core and then go from there. I've got a couple clients that just swear by maple from the old days, so we will build them maple cores. I've done cores with birch stringers, with fir stringers, mahogany, cherry sidewalls. So it really does come down to, again, tailoring it to the customer, whether they're big burly dude or super light small person that isn't going to be able to bend maple, right? So we'll really go through and learn about the customer before we'll choose what that core makeup is going to be. And then that's just part of it, right? Then the other part is going to be the profiling, the part that most people have no clue about, as you would know. I mean, you take point one off of here and add point two to there and whatnot. That core flex is going to be drastically different.
Oh yeah,
Um, and that part, I think, was the part that I was most surprised about because when I was at Igneous, we had these a profiling sled, right? And so our profiles were didn't vary a whole bunch, and so a lot of the boards started to feel the same. Felt awesome, but they felt very, consistent, but the same, right? So when I got the CNC, that's when I was like, holy crap, I can, on a moment's notice, I can change point two or point one up front and can bump up the underfoot by point three, and I can drop the middle of the board by point one and tail bring it up to point two or point, of 1 or 2 millimeters or six, whatever it is. That's become a massive part of tailoring a snowboard to somebody to make them feel like they've ridden it their whole lives, is to be able to match that core flex to their ability.
yeah. And the CNC allows for that really easily.
Oh my God. Yeah, I wouldn't go back. It's a game changer. And for any like new snowboard makers, you don't need it, man. You don't need it. I did it. Igneous still doesn't have one, and they do incredible job. But for what I'm trying to do, I you couldn't pay me to go back to not using the CNC.
All right, and I see you guys also make skis. How many skis you guys make compared to snowboards?
We only do about, I think last year we did 4 pair of skis.
So not much.
Um, No, it's always been like this battle for me. I'm a snowboarder. I've always been a snowboarder. I did learn to ski for that year that I got a job checking lift tickets, but I just did it so I could get a free pass and get the job. I had no interest in skiing. And then when I got fired, I tried skiing 3 times since 1990 just for shits and giggles, and it was fun, but I've never been that guy. I've been a board sports person my whole life. And then there's always stigma, right? There's always freaking stigma out there about ski and snowboard companies that do both and blah 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 blah. My wife skis, man. I love my wife. We made her a pair of skis, and I have no problem with that. But I'm also, and Jordy, who works for me full time, I stole him from a ski company. He's a ski maker and he's a skier. And he's awesome. So to really maybe help him get stoked, I make skis for my wife, and a lot of my customers, their wives, husbands, sons, daughters, cousins, whatever. There's skiers in their families, right? So
Yeah.
you know what? I'm not going to say no. We aren't in a position to start pushing that because skiing inherently is bigger sport still than snowboarding. I don't, I'm not, this isn't, to me, it isn't about money and business. This is about snowboarding. I need to keep that path going for snowboarding. And if it was about money and all that stuff, then I would be like, fuck yeah, we're going to start pushing skis because there's more of them, right? We can make more money. We can make more stuff. That's not what this is about. We do, like I said, 4, maybe 5 pairs this year. And if we do 10, cool. I don't know that I'd want to push too far past that because that entire list behind me is all snowboarders, and I don't want that list to get messed up. That's my priority, and I want to stick with that because that's me. That's what I know. I feel in a way if I went and became a ski and snowboard company, which first of all would always be snowboard and ski company because I'm a snowboarder first, I would feel inauthentic in a way, right? To say, yeah, we're now a ski company. Look, Jones is doing it. LibTech kind of. There's other brands that do it, Cardiff and whatnot, and it's great, and they're pulling it off. Good for them. We don't. I don't feel like we have to. Feel like we get to, and if we want to, we will. But I don't feel it's important.
Understandable. You got your thing going, and you just make them when people ask for them. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's nothing against skiing. I mean, again, my wife skis. If I had a problem with skiing, we'd have divorced a long time ago. And a great deal of my friends are alpine rippers, man, for sure. So it's not about that. It's just me, who I am, and what I like to create.
Yeah, understandable. All right, kind of winding down here with questions. One more about the construction of the boards and the few skis you make. Base material. Are you using die cut, printed, or are you just using one solid base?
Solid graphite base, no die cuts, no prints. That's one of the fun things with Igneous and myself. We've stayed partners on a lot of things. If I need core material, if he needs something CNC'd, and we do a custom order together with Crown Plastics for a very specific graphite load into our base material. And Mike's been doing that for a long time. I was using ISO Sport, their graphite race base, and then with tariffs and shipping, freight, whatever, it just got so outrageous. And I would have to order so many rolls and I just don't use it in a year. And base material, the Corona treatment and whatnot, it's not forever, right? That stuff
Hmm.
can go bad. It can get brittle. Granted, it's typically a lot longer than they say it is, but still, like the amount of material I would have to use, and for me, I want the fastest. I want the base material that the fastest World Cup skiers are on, because one of the things that I love is when people get on our boards and they say that's one of the fastest snowboards I've ever been on in my life. That means the world to me because a fast snowboard is an easy snowboard, right? You don't have to worry about your speed. You will get there, and that is one less thing to worry about. And they're hard bases, right? They can take a hit, man, because again, for us, durability is extreme. We want this thing to just be bomber. Is stronger than anything you've ever ridden before. So that just means a certain graphite load. That means a certain quality of base material. So when I was ordering the stuff from Isosport and I was trying to say, hey, who else wants a roll? I've got extra roll. Is too expensive for a lot of small snowboard brands because a lot of guys just starting out. Like I couldn't afford that when I started. It's just too much money. And so for the smaller brands, they're better off with the extruded or just getting into it to learn, and then eventually, yeah, maybe you can afford the best bases in the world. So for me, luckily, I partner with Igneous and we do a batch order together and we share it.
That's pretty much all the questions I have for you, and I got a few here that are quick fire ones.
Yeah,
What's your daily driver? What board are you taking out the most?
actually, that board behind me, it's a 157 squash tail. I've made that board for myself probably 7 or 8 times with varying composites and top sheet. I ride that 80% of my year. I'm 56. I snowboard about 100 this year, 103 days a year. My goals are powder carving, and that board does it for me. I've just built myself a directional twin this year, which I'm kind of excited to ride. Ultimately, because I just got back into skating. I stopped skating for a while because of snowboarding and injuries, but I just got back into it. So it's gotten me kind of fired up to ride a twin again. But yeah, 157, kind of big nose, squash tail. That thing floats, and anything I can put at it. Great backcountry board. Yeah, that's my go-to.
Awesome. Is there a board or a build that you made that is your favorite of all time?
Yeah, yeah, hands down. I so that shape I built a board. So I've made boards with Titanol, right? And instead of it just being like a layer, I put the Titanol on the top and I polished it and it looked really cool. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if I can do an all metal board with metal sidewalls. My engineering friends were like, you can't do it. It's not going to work. It's not going to stick, blah, 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 blah. And so I thought, no, 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 I've got to try it. And then I wanted to try a different metal that was a little more pliable because Titanol's obviously, if you use Titanol, it's quite stiff. So I decided, hey, I'm going to try copper because copper just is so malleable, right? But to use copper by itself, the copper doesn't really have any memory. So it would bend and stay in that position. So I made a frame of Titanol, an inlay of copper, and then I patinaed the copper, and then I took a billet of 1/4 inch aluminum, and with the CNC, I cut out a ring, a whole sidewall. And then I dropped that sidewall into the wood core. So I had a polished aluminum sidewall, polished aluminum or Titanol, which is aluminum border with a copper inlay. So the board was basically all metal. Aside from the fiberglass, the core, and the base, it was all metal. And it was by far the funnest snowboard I've ever had. As far as damp, it's like you could bite into it, almost like gold, right? How soft. So it absorbed vibration like crazy. It was just awesome. But eventually, the copper expansion and contraction of copper, which it's known to do, started to crack. So I got about 60 days out of it.
Oh wow.
Before, yeah, 60 days. The hardest part was finding a way to get the copper to bond, and then dealing with the copper expansion and contraction with temperature, and which ultimately led for it to get little cracks in it. But man, I love that board.
That sounds like a very unique board. Never heard of
Yeah,
a board being built with copper.
yeah, yeah, I love it. That's the stuff we like to do, man. The crazier the better.
Yeah, definitely. Favorite resort, Jackson
Well,
Hole
I'm
or
sitting
something?
here,
Yeah,
Jackson Hole, man, hands down.
yeah, yeah. I gotta get out there someday. If you could ride with any snowboarder, past, present, who would it be?
Um, you know, to be honest, I think Terrier. I just thought, oh well, I mean, that's I think everyone's favorite would be Craig Kelly.
Hmm.
Um, but as far as somebody who's still around, Terrier always just his style and fluidity to me was he looked like Michael Jordan, man. He just looked like he was just flawless and effortless. And so yeah, I honestly think it would be Terrier.
What's one piece of advice you would give someone who's thinking about starting making skis or snowboards?
Learn, learn, learn. Don't be afraid to call up other makers and ask them questions, study, go visit. I mean, Never Summer has taken me in 3 different times, and they will do it again. Like they're so nice, and we're doing different things. So I mean, I actually buy wood cores from Never Summer. They make me cores. So get to know other makers, get to know bigger brands, be respectful, be inquisitive, be curious. For me, anytime somebody told me it can't be done, that just lit my fire. And
Hmm.
I want to find out if it can't be done instead of taking someone else's word for it. And just dream. Like I think that, I've been really lucky because the Ignis was here, Maiden Skis was here, Sago Skis, which unfortunately went out of business, even though I didn't, work with them directly. We had, mutual things that we worked together on. For people who don't have that, it's much harder. So you're gonna have to travel, go to see if LibTech Mervin will give you a tour. See if Go get a tour of Craig's in Vermont. Go call the Never Summer guys. Wherever you can get a chance to go and learn from other people. Be humble about it. I let people in here all the time. Somebody says they want to come see the shop. I come on in. I don't care if you think you're going to steal something from me and have the time, the money, the pain, the tears to do it, knock yourself out, man. I am not afraid of having anyone come in here, show them what I do. There's only one thing that I think we're really protective of, and that's how we get our wildflowers to look so good on our snowboards and skis. That's probably the only thing that I'm very protective of because we work so hard on that, and it's cost us a lot of money. But I mean, at the end of the day, I've shared people how I do that. But be curious, ask questions, reach out to people, and do not be afraid to fail because you will fail.
Most definitely. But yeah, that's everything I got. Appreciate this. Thank you for taking the time and doing this with me. This
No
is
problem, Josh.
my first interview, and this is the first episode for an interview. So
Awesome. Well, I'm honored.
yeah, thank you.
Super honored.
But yeah,
Pardon
definitely.
me?
Oh no, definitely. I'm honored that you agreed to do this, and yeah. And where can people find you?
They can find me at francosnowshapes.com. They can find me at Instagram at francosnowshapes. Same thing on Facebook. And come to Jackson Hole, get a tour of the factory, and let's go make some runs together.
A big thanks to Mikey from Franco Snowshapes for coming on for the very first interview on Shapers of the Snow. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you for the next one. Thanks, Snow.